I'm doing another splitting of a segment of the, I don't know if you'd call it a conference, a speech, a meeting, question and answers, what Dinesh D'Souza did live at Michigan State University. This was the final question that they had allowed, and the woman that is presenting her question is asking a question I've asked myself for a long time. What can I do? I see things just being ridiculously handled. Can I put it that way? And it's like you go speak at the school board meetings and they look at you like deers in a headlight, like this blank look. Some of them actually understand what you're saying and don't like you for it, but others are kind of like lost in their own little fog and they don't realize that what they're doing is wrong. How
Hi,
do you
Dinesh.
fix that?
I got involved in education advocacy 18 years ago when I noticed my children were getting indoctrinated in the public schools. They're both students at U of M now, and I have a front row seat at way worse indoctrination than I ever thought I would see. I'm currently running for State Board of Education to try to fight that and also to improve academics. Could you please tell me your opinion as to why Republicans don't stand up for the leftist indoctrination happening in our schools when we're paying for it?
Oh, good question.
I think the problem is that universities and to some degree schools are set up in such a way that there is very little true accountability. If you take a professor, not at a state college or at a private school, it makes no difference. Whether it's Michigan State or whether it's Tulane University, this professor is, you may say, grazing fat and happy without anyone to be able to look over his or her shoulder except his or her peers. The administration doesn't have any real authority. The parents have none. The taxpayer authority is so indirect it has no real power. The trustees are a virtual rubber stamp and have no actual intellectual oversight. So you have a very peculiar structure that if it goes awry, now it doesn't always go awry, and when it's functioning fine, this kind of autonomy is all right. I don't even think there's intellectual freedom of a faculty member to speak. I'm in favor of that. My problem is that very often now what you have is the herd of independent thinkers syndrome, in which a faculty department is all echoing each other. Now, there are great debates going on in the country, but those are not being reflected in the economics department here at all, because these guys all think alike. And they're going to make sure that they hire people who think exactly like them. And if there are young academics who are trying to work on a thesis and get tenure that think differently, they will make sure that guy's career is ruined. This to me is the intellectual thuggery that has actually also become a staple part of our educational system. So the disappearance of public debate, even CNN, remember just a couple of decades ago, CNN used to have a show called Crossfire, in which they would have Michael Kinsley on the left, Pat Buchanan on the right. Or Bill Buckley used to have Firing Line. I participated in a couple of Firing Line debates. And even though the intellectual quality of those varied, it gave you the chance to watch and go, wow, here's what this guy thinks, here's what that guy thinks. I can now set the two side by side and make up my own mind. Today, it's more like two ships passing by. You feel like you're talking to really two different universes altogether. Now again, the left created that and the right responded to it. In other words, CNN canceled Crossfire, and there was no conservative point of view on CNN or ABC or NBC or CBS, and so conservatives created talk radio. That's what created Rush Limbaugh. Roger Ailes, who started the Fox News channel, basically said, look, if we're right, we conservatives are right, that half the country is not being served by mainstream media, then creating right-wing media should have a big market. And he was right. So he created, if you will, the right's answer to MSNBC and CNN, Fox News Channel, and this created this kind of separation that, is it unhealthy on the balance? Yes, because it would be really good to have these points of view clash. But look, I make a movie, I make all these extraordinary claims, factual claims. If I were wrong, Rachel Maddow, a smart person, could have me on her show, go, Dinesh, you said that in 1860 no Republican owned a slave. I have in my hands the names of 3 Republicans who owned slaves. She'll never do that because she doesn't. And it's too dangerous for her to put me on because she bloviates about fascism every day. And if she puts me on, in 90 seconds, it will go to the nub of the issue, which is things like, name one thing that Trump has done that actually would legitimately be called fascist. And she wouldn't be able to do it. And so then the show would unravel. And so they know this. They all know this. And so, and it's true on the conservative side too. It's one-sided rhetoric being blasted. So do we want to get back to a better America in which we have this kind of, it's going to take creativity for that to happen. It's not happening in the structures we have now. So here we are on campus. I've tried to introduce a little whiff of what that debate might sound like here. And it's kind of a pity that that young fellow was sort of escorted out of the room, because it actually would have been healthy for him to speak his mind, to have him understand a little better how an immigrant like me thinks the way I do. I would like to understand better how someone who is living in the abundance of America and enjoying the fruits of a way of life that he takes for granted, that's so scarce in the rest of the world, nevertheless feels this kind feels that they have to act in this kind of adolescent and almost barbaric way. What causes that? What threat do I pose to him? What am I saying that is so out of bounds that he literally can't stand it and can only respond with insults and epithets? Very diseased body politic that we have now. So
what I'm going to do, and what I'm going to suggest others do, is attend the school board meetings, be the squeaky wheel, expose them for what and who they are. I'm sure some of them are okay, but from what I've seen from the Washoe County School Board, they are against the truth. They seem to be more about making a name for themselves, and not tipping their own cart. They don't mind tipping my cart, but their little cart, they've got to make sure that it's steady and stable and all that stuff, and so they support each other. I think the only one that really gets it possibly is the high school student that they allow on the board. So I'm praying that that student will actually have her ears opened, her eyes opened, her heart opened, and that she also has her mouth open as she speaks against what's taking place. Let the kids get an education that actually concurs with the way they are designed. I will say some of the schools in the Washoe County District do that, and they have a hard time finding students. End of message.